With the announcement of NCSoft's brand new MMO Throne and Liberty, a lot of people have been asking me about what do you think the fate of Blade & Soul is going to look like, considering this is another MMO that NCSoft runs, and could it mean good things for Blade & Soul, could it mean bad things? I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts. Basically, with Blade & Soul, I do feel like the game is in a little bit of a maintenance mode. A lot of the content has been pretty bland to me, not really that exciting. I feel like they're kind of just riding off the wave of the third specializations. I don't even really know where the story is going to keep going because at this point, spoiler alert, we defeated Mushin. I mean, what really can we keep doing at this point? That was a very old school villain that we had for years and years and years in the game. Now that he's defeated, it's kind of like at the point where I don't know where they'll take the story, as it's just like, okay, we have another bad guy we fight. Kind of a little boring to me. Now, of course, if you have an active clan, the game will probably feel perfectly normal to you because you just run all the dungeons with your clan. But the problems do exist where if you're just trying to join, a cross-dungeon lobby, trying to do a dungeon, it is hard a lot of times to fill that 6-man party requirement. Like, you shouldn't have to have your clan to actually be able to run basic dungeon content in Blade & Soul. And really, that's a reflection of how low the player base is. And then, of course, you even have factors of it's not even that many players in the open world leveling up. Of course, leveling up in Blade & Soul is very short. It only takes a couple days of dedicated time. Could even take a day if you really grind it out like crazy, which I don't recommend. But either way, like there should be a small or at least a decent influx of new players leveling, going through the zones. And really, if you go through any of those zones, it's quite dead. It's very hard to find more than 5 new players leveling up, which is very alarming because if you don't have a bunch of new players entering the game, you're really just going to have the last veterans remaining and kind of like the top players. At that point, it's not really a massive multiplayer online experience. It's just kind of like you and your 20 guild members playing all the content, which, I mean, could be fun, but it's not really that healthy for MMO. Now, the hope I have with Throne and Liberty is if it is very successful for NCSoft coming out, is that they'll look back at their other PC games and think how can they improve them and how they can make them increase revenue and do very well for NCSoft as a company, of course. Now, the hope is that if they look at Blade & Soul, they see, hey, why don't we actually make this franchise good again? Why don't we actually make a console port, which is something people have asked for years. People have asked for years for it to come on Xbox, PlayStation, and we've seen Final Fantasy 14 do it. Elder Scrolls Online does it. Why can't Blade & Soul do it? It just doesn't make sense. Of course, they could if they wanted to. They could do that to help get people's attention to the game, make people want to play it. If it's on console, it's open to more players who can check it out and maybe get a bigger player base going. Maybe it'll make them want to improve the Unreal Engine 4 engine we have now, which is decent in some aspects, is better than Unreal Engine 3, but there's still various issues with disconnecting, freezes. Kodrak's layer is completely terrible to go through. Mushin's Tower has weird FPS drops if you don't fix the settings, which you shouldn't have to tinker with settings to make the game run good. It should just run good. It's 2022, it's ridiculous. So maybe if Throne and Liberty does really well, NCSoft will look at things, maybe even Ion 2, and see, how can we improve these games and make them grow? Because clearly NCSoft cares about the Blade & Soul name. They've made over 3 Blade & Soul mobile games off the name Blade & Soul. So they clearly care about the game and the title about it, at least in the aspect of making money. Maybe they don't care about it past that, of course. But either way, they do care about the franchise of Blade & Soul. So hopefully if the MMO PC game like Throne Liberty does well for them, they'll look back at Blade & Soul and maybe improve it even more than what it is right now, because I still feel like the PC version of Blade & Soul has so much untapped potential. It's ridiculous. Improve Unreal Engine 4, like they could do so many things to really make people want to come back to the game, and people would come back because I know so many people who love Blade & Soul, but they just don't want to play it because they know how terrible NCSoft is as a company with their microtransactions and how they mismanage their games and just how kind of boring the content is right now. So if they do the right things, I feel like Blade & Soul could be in a great state. Now, that's the positive aspect of hopefully that's what they would do with Throne and Liberty. Now, the other flip side is it could be the opposite. It could be terrible for Blade & Soul. They could release Throne and Liberty. It does really well, and Blade & Soul says, why do we care about these other PC games? Why are we even running this dead game Blade & Soul and this dead game Ion? Just cut the cord on them and just focus on Throne and Liberty all in, make as much money as possible off that PC game, and then just focus on the mobile game. They could do that because NCSoft is one of those companies where they will pull the plug if the game is dying. Probably the best example I give you is WildStar. People really look at it fondly now, but back then the player base was quite low. People didn't really enjoy it. I feel like it was a pretty great game. I mean, the housing system was awesome, but it didn't bring enough revenue for NCSoft, and they just cut it. They just canceled the game, they shut it down, and boom, it was gone. And so clearly, if the game's not doing well for NCSoft, if it's not making enough money, they will shut it down very quickly. Probably more quickly than any other gaming studio I can think of. So with Throne Liberty, if it does do really well and Blade Soul is still declining every single quarter revenue report that they put out, as it is right now, it's declining like crazy. You can look at the facts yourself. If it just keeps going down and down and down, NCSoft just be like, why are we even wasting our time with this Blade Soul PC game when we have Throne and Liberty? So I really feel like there's two flip sides. It could be the positive one I mentioned, or it could be really negative and it could really make Blade Soul possibly shut down, or at least be just basically on maintenance mode where they don't even really develop that much content for it. They just kind of let it ride out. Let the last couple whales spend as much money as they want on the RNG boxes, and then just like, see you guys later, we're shutting down the game. So we can see how it goes. I want to be positive, and hopefully it does make them relook back at Blade Soul, but it could be very bad for Blade Soul as well. So the flip sides are there. I don't know what NCSoft would plan. Obviously, I don't know the company, what they want to do with Blade Soul, but the potential is there, and if they really want to work on the game, they could. But that's a whole nother video I can make. Anyways, I appreciate you guys watching the content as always. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think this will be a positive for Blade Soul with Throne and Liberty coming out in the next few years? Or do you think this will be a bad thing for Blade Soul? If Blade Soul is even around in, you know, I don't know, 2 years or 1.5 years that it takes to come to the West, as it has to come to Korea first, of course. So we'll see. But anyways, I appreciate you guys watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one real soon.